We're good?
Yep.
All righty. Good morning, everyone. The time is 10:03 a.m. Today's date is May 14th, 2021. This is a committee infrastructure and general improvements committee meeting of the City of Youngstown City Council. And my name is Anita Davis, and I am chairperson of this committee and also 6th Ward City Council. I'll be taking the roll call today, which is item number 1 on the agenda. And present are Vice Chair, absent is Vice Chair Lauren McNally. Present is Committee Member Jimmy Hughes, Councilman Jimmy Hughes, 2nd Ward, and Committee Member 1st Ward Councilman Julius Oliver, Chuck Shasho, City of Youngstown Public Works, Pat Kerrigan from the Oak Hill Collaborative, Kyle Mysak from the Youngstown Finance Division.
To the chair.
Yes, Chuck.
Sorry, I have Gene Leeson with me as well. He's off camera, but he's here. And I just want to let you know because I'm sitting on my computer in case I need some access to some data. That's all. Sorry.
Okay, and Gene Leeson may chime in. Jennifer Ossinger, Assistant Clerk, and Valencia Merrill, City Clerk. Rick Deeks, our IT guru. Did I get everyone? If I missed anyone, chime in.
To the chair, I have with me here, he's also off camera, but he's my assistant here. So
Who would that be, Pat?
You want to introduce yourself? Go ahead. No, you get the camera. No. Steve Kristen. He works with us here at the Collaborative, and he's also going to be working with Eastgate in the future.
Okay, Steve Kristen from the Oak Hill Collaborative, and also Gene Leeson from Public Works. I have everyone. Okay, item number 1 being out the way, we're going to go to item number 2, which is under new business. The first item will be Pat Kerrigan. Pat is going to give us an overall description of the broadband infrastructure that we have here in Youngstown or going up Oak Hill, and also just to tell us what broadband is. Pat, you're up. Go ahead.
Well, thank you. And some of you may need a little primer on this, but guys like Rick Deek are very, very knowledgeable, and he really knows. I think Chuck probably does too, especially what fiber we already have, what infrastructure we have in the ground. And it's not unusual for a city to not really know what's out there. I mean, because there's so many competing utilities that have put stuff in the ground over the years, it's hard to keep track of. There's no requirement for a central registry. So I know Rick and I have had these conversations many times, like, well, where's this? What's available? And it depends on who owns it, who leases it, and who put it in the ground originally. So the idea is you want to have a structure that can deliver the capacity for people to get on the internet. And that's generally referred to when we talk about broadband. And that's kind of a distinction that's not really critically important, because you can get broadband, that's the internet basically, and you can get it in a variety of different ways. You can get it wireless, you can get it through fiber, you can get it through cable, you can get it, on your devices, you can get it at home. So just understand that we do have a pretty robust network in the city. And so when we talk about the movement that we need to have, I think, in the city for broadband accessibility and getting people to use the internet, it's not so much a question of whether or not we have that capacity. We did a survey not too long ago, compared with some Eastgate data and Connected Nation data. It shows that Youngstown has about 98%, 99% coverage, literally. I mean, there's probably a few places out on the far east side, Jimmy, over there on the Sharon line, are places that don't have quite the capacity, but everywhere else in the city has it. The real question for the city is for the city residents is whether they can afford it or not. So now you move kind of from infrastructure to accessibility and to cost. So that's I think the primary issue that residents are facing is either the cost or their perception of the cost. Part of the problem is that people don't put value on their internet service. So you can right now you can get 8 megabytes per second is a measuring stick. I'm just going to keep talking. Any questions, please feel free to interrupt me. Okay. But internet's measured basically in megabytes per second. FCC has determined, and it's outdated, but the 25 megabytes per second download speed is high-speed internet, broadband, if you would. But Spectrum, I'm not pitching them, but they have a deal where if you have, you can get 30 megabytes per second download speed for like $18.99, $18.95. I mean, that's cheap, but people don't want to spend the $20 to get it. They figure, well, I got it on my cell phone and that's all I need. Well, that doesn't help kids. That's not the best for telehealth. That's not the best for job applications, things like that. So what I would like to see, if I were asking the city or this committee to look at, I would say I would like for you to look at trying to do maybe middle mile for lack of a better term, but we have the capacity in a lot of places. Now by the way, we actually even have major trunk lines coming through the city down on East Federal Street, right on the railroad tracks. I mean, there's incredible capacity there. We just have to be able to tap into it, and all that costs money. But what I would like to see you do in terms of infrastructure is things like this new project, the YSU Road project, where they're putting conduit in the ground. Eastgate got a grant for $1.2 million to do that. Now that helps for future expansion, for future use. Problem is whether or not they have anybody using that, that conduit. And I'm not privy to any of that, but if you have it, at least you build it and they will come. Ideally, is the idea, is the concept. I'd love to see you maybe expand that project, take it to places that need internet or really have poverty issues, so that like some of the YMHA properties, taking conduit to their door, making an investment in that respect. And there are other ways to do it. Steve, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I think, and let me just, I don't know, you could talk about EBB a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. The main thing I think where the city can do, there's a lot of things in its an effort to keep the time. We can come back. We're more than happy to come back and talk more. But there's certain things that the city can do to help Oak Hill. And
hold on 1 second, please. Hold on. This is going to be Steve Christian who's going to be speaking.
Yes.
For the record. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Steve.
Okay, thank you. I spent 34 years with AT&T, and what I think what Pat's talking about is there are things that the city can do to help with what we call adoption of the internet. So Pat talked about the people that maybe not be able to get it, but also there's a lot of people that can get it but don't see value. So what the city can do is help promote the value and the benefit of the internet. But also, and we can talk more later on, but there are things that the city can do in terms of permitting, in terms of environment that welcomes and makes it easy for companies to come in and invest. For instance, Pat's talked about conduit. And what conduit is, think of conduit as pipe that then that fiber goes inside when it goes underground. And Chuck, you know a lot about conduit. So, but there are some certain regulations that take place as how providers use the right of way, how they access it, how they use it. So what cities can do is make it easier for those providers to want to come into your town and expand.
And so that would be definitely part of infrastructure. What we try to do here at the collaborative is also help people get onto the internet. And is that, I suppose if you're talking about, broadband infrastructure and broadband as a system, that's all part of it. Because we feel the more people that know how to use the internet, know how to get on, appreciate it, take service, that rising tide will lift all boats. And then, the commercial entities are going to be more interested in coming into town and investing more money to bring a faster and better access over the internet. I mean, right now, there's a problem with, as I said, 98% of the city of Youngstown is covered capacity wise, but a lot of people don't adopt it because they can't afford it. Which, if I may diverge just a little bit, this is really important. I think whether infrastructure members, just as members of City of Council, the emergency broadband benefit program as part of the stimulus bill is coming out. And this is in addition and separate from any monies that you as a city might get. But every resident that has any sort of financial limitations, and there's 135% of poverty level on SNAP programs, Social Security, a whole wide range of things. It's very expansive. You're entitled to a $50 credit to pay for your internet service. So if you have a $30 internet bill, it's free. If you have a $49.99 internet bill, it's free for a period of time, as long as that money's there and as long as the pandemic goes on. So, I mean, those are programs I think that as council people you need to be aware of and let your constituents know. We're having another workshop. We had one Wednesday and we're having one tomorrow here at the Collaborative at 10 o'clock. And we're prepared to do this on the road, so to speak, wherever we can get a crowd of people that would be interested in doing. There's nothing in it for us, but we think that, this is part of what we do is we try to get internet to as many people as possible. The other thing,
Okay.
May I address this?
sure.
Hold on, before you, hold on.
Okay.
If I just pause. First off,
And I'm not used to how to do this.
okay. For the record, Councilwoman Samantha Turner is here on the meeting as well.
Okay.
So now, Cal, you had a comment you wanted to make.
Yes.
And ladies and gentlemen, let's remember that you have to be recognized by the chair before you start chiming. Cal, go ahead.
I think what Pat has addressed this moment with regards to the EBB is critical, because we can, if Pat and his organization is willing to help the community, we could use some of our funds immediately and start advertising. And if they're going to have open workshops, all we need to do is to, again, be able to coordinate when this timing is available and start steering people in the community, because every single person most likely in Youngstown is going to qualify. And this is up to $50. Once you actually get the approval back from the federal government, you would then contact your local provider. And then the provider is going to start on your billing, adjusting it. And this is part of the federal stimulus. So this is something that we immediately need to start thinking about how we can get this rolling, where we use our funding to advertise, but it's going to take some cooperation of us coordinating, so that if we go out there and use media to pitch this, it's going to be important that Pat's organization is ready and prepared, and other organizations within the community, to go out and to make sure that we assist our community in being able to apply for this short-term credit, which right now it's looking like it'll go through the remainder of the calendar year, but it's another way of, again, helping our tax base appreciate that by having internet activity and connection, their opportunities are so much more greater than what they are right now if they're limited or they're not utilizing the internet to the the greater possibility of what it can do for them financially and personally.
Thank you. And Pat, this is $50 towards the internet.
Yes, ma'am.
What's another bill?
Yes, ma'am.
And which is considerable.
Right. I mean, and it started actually on Wednesday was the first day. And we had our first workshop on Wednesday and we got a couple people signed up already. And so, I mean, it's available out there now and you don't need us to do it, but it's very complicated. I needed help to do it. I mean, it just doesn't flow. You have to break certain paperwork. And in response to what Kyle suggested, we are absolutely prepared, willing to go. We did a trial run with, just some of our own kind of a social media publicity, but yeah, we're prepared to go forward with that. And right now, we feel that's the most important thing the Oak Hill Collaborative can do, is to get people signed up for EBB. There's a lot of other things, but this is critical right now. If I may go on, one of the other thing, okay, go
hold
on.
Sam, were you putting your hand up? I couldn't tell. Okay, go ahead, Pat.
Yeah. The other thing that we're working on right now is the Eastgate got a couple $100,000 grant about a year ago to do a survey, more than a survey, a study on broadband implementation in a 3-county area: Ashtabula, Trumbull, and Mahoning. And they're about ready to come out with their results on that, maybe in a week or two. And Youngstown is part of that. There hasn't been a whole lot of participation at our meetings, but by the city of Youngstown, but hopefully the Oak Hill Collaborative is representing the people, the poor folks, the people, the residents that need to have a voice at the table. And so that's what we do. But and the county's involved, and several counties are involved, and they're shaping the framework for how we go forward, because Eastgate and to some extent the Port Authority both have access to lots of money. There's also going to be a lot of money available through both directly through the city portion of the CARES Act money. That's a specific line item that you can spend money on broadband infrastructure. But then there's also broadband infrastructure money that's out there as well. So there's really two big sources of money. And so, I mean, this is an exciting time, but and I'm glad that you're having this kind of meeting to get people all on the same page and talk about some of the issues, because this is going to come fast and furious, and it's going to be competition. As much money as there is, there'll be other people kind of competing for it. And I'm not so sure where the city is on it, but I know that Eastgate and the 3-county region is going to be well situated, because they've got their consultants on it. They got a report coming, and they're ready to hit the ground running. And that's actually where Steve Kristen is going to go. He's going to move from my office here to a lot more time with Eastgate. We're going to work in partnership with them. And we're doing like the digital inclusion part. They're doing the broadband infrastructure part.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Pat. You gave us a lot of information. So tomorrow's meeting is for the EBB is at 10 o'clock at the Collaborative.
Yes.
On Oak Hill by next door to the old South Side Hospital. And it's open to the public, Pat?
Yes, ma'am. It's all free, of course, and anybody can come. And not only people that are going to sign up, but people maybe that want to come. And Vicki Vickers came from from the Oak Hill Neighborhood Association, right, to be able to pass that information on to her people. So you're all more than welcome.
All righty. Okay, I think that's about all we have coming from Pat. Are there any questions for Pat about the broadband? Jimmy, anything? I know you're Samantha. Here. Okay, Samantha first, and then Jimmy.
Thank you. Through the chair, Pat, you said the meeting is tomorrow at 10. What do we need to tell people to bring?
Steve, you have a list. It depends on their situation.
Yeah, it really depends. I mean, ideally, Samantha, if they're on a program now, if you're on SNAP, if you bring your SNAP card, if you're at 135% of the poverty level, the government asks for some kind of proof what that might be. And if you're on a government program, it's a little easier, but you bring some kind of ID, driver's license, social security number. They don't need to have a card, but at least know what it is, because the government has a system that will then, we can type that in and it will check on the government system and see if they qualify. And we are setting up appointments also during the week, Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays, for people to come in to get more personal attention. So tomorrow, we're asking people to come on out. If they have some ID, bring the ID. If you have a SNAP card, bring that. But depending on the turnout, we may have to set an appointment up for people for next week.
It's a little, we don't know if we're getting 5 people or 25 people sometimes,
Okay. So they just need their benefit card. If they don't get public assistance, then they need to make an appointment.
Yeah, they can make an appointment. We'll talk about that tomorrow. If and it's based on your household, Samantha. If you have somebody in your house that's on free and reduced lunches, you qualify. If you have someone that gets a Pell Grant, you qualify. So I mean, there's a wide way to, or ways to qualify.
Thank you. What's the phone number they can call for questions?
You have, he's going to get it. We have a special line set up for that. You can also communicate with me, any of you, by oakhillcollaborative@gmail.com, and your people can as well. oakhillcollaborative@gmail.com, and if you, any of the council people, my number is 330-518-5884, 330-518-5884. Although, as you can see, I'm relying on Steve and my IT guy for some of the details. So don't call me if you want to sign up.
Yeah, so Samantha, we have a special number. If it rings, then we can get it. We will, otherwise it'll go to voicemail, but it's 330-406-0271.
Through the chair,
Go ahead, Kyle.
Pat and Steve, how can we help broaden the reach immediately, because you are already coordinating and assisting? If council wanted to act and provide a reimbursement, what would you choose to use? What type of medium, and how quickly could you get that message out across the airwaves or on print, so that this thing really could blossom? Because it practically almost the entire community should qualify for this in Youngstown.
Right. Well, officially, we've signed up as an outreach partner with the FCC. So what that does, Kyle, that gives us access. We have access to a lot of other information, whether you're talking about flyers. We've had contact with one of the local billboard companies. We haven't done anything with them, but we've had a contact with them. It would be easy to put something out in terms of PSAs initially, and then maybe some billboards, maybe some radio spots. We definitely could do that quick. And to your point, the majority of the people in Youngstown will qualify. And this is one of those things that the money's out there. It's $3.2 billion. It's good until it's gone. And I know Congress is looking at additional money, but the sooner you sign up, the longer your benefit will be. So we want to get people signed up as fast as we can. And let me also, it's not just a question of signing them up. It's also a question, Oak Hill Collaborative has the ability to help train, because if people don't know how to turn the machine on, and we do have a way that we can get people cheap, refurbished, used computers. Right now, you can get a computer for $20 after the discounts, or if you want a laptop for $49 through PCs for People, which we can coordinate also. So we can get you the training, we can get you the hardware, we can get you signed up. So obviously, you can tell we're excited about this program.
No, through the chair, I mean,
Go ahead, Kyle.
after reading the materials that were made available on Wednesday, I felt like this was going to be a great segue with this meeting. And then when Pat brought it up, I'm glad that council's hearing it as a whole. I'm hopeful that after this meeting, that the council members that are part of this committee push to say that they want to do something, because I'm sure that it's not going to take a lot of resources to actually go out there and assist with advertising.
Right.
But again, it's making sure that if we're successful in advertising, that the people know where they can go to get this assistance. And that's critical, that if you're willing to put it out there and make it available, I'm sure council will act on it, and the administration can push for it through an ordinance. But again, it's having a partner that really wants to take on the role of leading. And that's why I'm grateful that you're doing this right now with council support.
Okay. All right. Jimmy and then Julius.
Through the chair, I know the broadband, and I know about 20 years ago when we first started putting this fiber or whatever we put down underground, but it was, at the time, it seemed like it was constantly changing. It was something that maybe became outdated, I thought. Is the future looking like what we already have? And if we invest in that, what you was trying to describe as the broadband that's already alongside the railroad tracks and all that other stuff, what's the longevity of this? And are we with that? Is there another system, maybe a better Wi-Fi hubbing system that we should be looking at, or something?
Well,
Okay,
first,
hold on. Excuse me, before you respond, just for the record, Vice Chair and 5th Ward Councilwoman Lauren McNally is also on the at the meeting. Go ahead, Steve.
Okay. Through the chair. Good question, Jimmy. A couple of things to keep in mind. First of all, when you look at the old systems, like the old copper wire, there was a lot more of that taking place. As you had expansion, you ran into capacity issues with the copper cable. With fiber, it's a little different because you've got electrons and protons and everything else running through glass. What happens is to upgrade, for the most part, you're talking about electronics on either end. And what I mean, give it to illustrate, if I had spectrum today at 100 and I wanted to go up to 200, there's nothing I need to do in my house. Spectrum does it all on their side with the electronics. The other thing to keep in mind is this is one of the benefits of having the providers competing, because now you got AT&T Spectrum, you got Verizon, T-Mobile, they're all trying to get faster and faster, and they're the ones that are making the investments, and those are the ones that are doing the work, and all our users have to do is sit there and enjoy the benefits of it. Yeah.
Through the chair, a follow-up.
Go ahead, Jimmy. Yes.
So you're saying that this, like we hear all the time about 5G, and 20 years ago we heard about 3G coming and all that other stuff. So it's not the hardwire, it's not the fiber that's doing that. It's something else, right?
Steve?
Through the chair, what I'm going to suggest, and I can answer that, Jimmy, I'm going to suggest that we do a follow-up meeting because we can get into a little bit more about that. But when you think about 5G, think of it this way, Jimmy, is you had 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, and that is more of the wireless side that's coming from the tower to the phone. And what you see, the technology is now with small cells, they're actually putting more towers at a closer spot. Like in Chuck, you may be more familiar with this, where they have small cells that are going in a downtown area, and they may be 800 to 1,000 feet away. You have fiber running to that. But when you talk, Jimmy, you talk 5G, you're really talking about the wireless connection from the fiber to the device, to the person. But yeah, that's definitely the way the future is going.
And through the chair, if I might just
Go ahead,
add to that, in response to Councilman Hughes, I don't think that we aren't recommending that the city do more investment in that fiber network. The city really doesn't invest it traditionally in the past. It may seem that way because they're using city streets and they're getting permits and they're getting supervised, but the money is coming from the providers. And as long as we have that system, which isn't going to change, this isn't going to become a monopoly where it's going to be up to either the city or the state or the feds. As long as they're doing it, let them do it. There's no purpose to be served. And maybe you get, some areas that don't have access, but again, 98% of the city has access. So there's no reason to put it down. We can get faster just by, electronic means. So, I mean, I would think that the city would want to spend its money more efficiently on other things other than laying more fiber, putting conduit down in places that don't have it, taking extensions to, again, YMHA properties or things like that, doing more education, small cell legislation where they can put those small cells on telephone poles and other places, things like that.
Thank you.
Or I was going to say one last area where you might help is maybe like for the amphitheater or other places downtown. You might want to do something there because nobody else is maybe going to address that issue, and you're going to have hopefully we'll get back to having 5,000-10,000 people there, and they're going to have a big need, and that could be something you can do relatively cheaply, I think.
Okay, that answered your question. Okay, Julius. I'm sorry, Jimmy, did you have another follow-up?
No, I do not.
Okay,
Thank
Julius?
Thank you, through the chair. I was just going to suggest for means of advertising or getting the word out there. I think it's a great idea if all the council members kind of get together and kind of show their face along with Oak Hill Collaborative to be able to get that information out to each one of our wards. But I think at the same time, a lot of, no matter how much attention is our information is put out, it's still missed by a lot of people. So I think partnering with organizations or newspapers like the Buckeye Review or, somebody, the Black and Brown media outlets would be great to get the information out as well, because a lot of times they get skipped, like the Chris Gunther Show or Can't Knock the Pod. And I think another thing you can do to get the word out is probably get with Samantha and try to partner with the Juneteenth event that's coming up, which will bring a lot of different people to a lot of different places around the city in a week's time. So that's just my 2 cents. Thanks.
Thank you. It's a great idea.
Thank you.
To the chair, if I may just say, we house the Buckeye Review here at the Oak Hill Collaborative. Their offices are here now. So they're kind of one of our primary sources of dealing with the outside world. And we also have our own digital recording studio up here for anybody who's general knowledge. And it's underutilized. We're letting people use it for public services or things like that for free. But we can whip up, any type of advertising, whether it be single shot, doesn't have to be a slickly produced thing, although we can go that way too. But we can do a lot here quickly, get it on the ground running. And I would love to have council people on board. I think that's a great idea, Julius. And so we could do a lot of those things, and printing. And when we're done with all this, you just have to tell me who we need to talk to. I know it depends on a resolution, but how do I get to talk to somebody to give you an idea? Would that be you, Anita, or whoever? I don't know.
It'd be council as a whole, but we'll get the first part taken care of with the print and everything else, and then get it just distributed. But we're now getting off topic a little bit too. And are there any other questions for Pat and Steve before they boogie? Because we're about to go on to our next topic. And don't forget that tomorrow's meeting is at 10 a.m. at the Oak Hill Collaborative for EBB.
Great.
And everyone is welcomed.
Yes.
And real quick, going. If you guys don't have any questions for Pat and Steve, thank you to both Pat and Steve in the Oak Hill Collaborative. I'm very well aware that the Buckeye Review is housed in your building. I've known that for a while, and I know about your studio as well. Thank you for your service to our Southside community. Samantha, did you have your hand up? Okay. Thank you so much to both of you guys.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. And if you want to, you can stick around, or you can go ahead and log off.
We're going to log off if that's okay.
Okay.
You can talk
Thank you.
about us. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Nice little update there. And Cal will be in touch with you, I'm sure. Council's going to want to help do something. Going on to the next item. This is to the Director of Public. We're going to turn this over to the Director of Public Works, Chuck Shasho.
Hello, everyone, through the chair. Good morning, everyone. So we're going to talk about some paving today and just like, our path moving forward and where we're at with our paving program and so forth. So,
okay, why don't you start with item number 1, the street paving then. Go ahead.
Okay, so the street paving, we're out for bid now. We advertised on Tuesday. So we'll advertise for 1 more week, and we are scheduled to open bids on June 28th. So when we open the bids, we'll review the bids and then go to Board of Control for approval. And I expect that paving will start probably in mid-June. I sent everybody their what I'm considering their final list. We made some adjustments with everyone, and we'll go from there. But I don't generally release the list. Although if you're creative, you can go find it right now. But I don't release the list usually until Board of Control awards the contract. But just in case we got to make any of that, in case for some reason the bids come in real high and we got to take a street off or something, that's never happened, but it could happen, I guess. But so that's when I'll release the list of the paving, just to make sure that they're final. But generally speaking, our roadway conditions and our paving process and our maintenance, I think it needs some work. Obviously, our constraint has been and always will be finances. What people don't understand is we pay for asphalt by the cubic yard in place. So I hear a lot of things all the time about how people, they're skimping on their asphalt. They're only putting down ½ inch or, first of all, you can't put down a ½ inch of asphalt. That's the type of mix we use. But we pay by volume. So because we don't know how much asphalt it's going to take on the street, we estimate, but there's dips and voids and so forth. So we pay by volume. So the reason I bring that up is because when I first started working for the city, we were routinely putting down 10,000 cubic yards of asphalt. Like I think at this year's contract, I think we're at about 5,500 cubic yards of asphalt. Mainly because our budget generally plus or minus a couple $100,000 has stayed the same over the last 20 years since I've been here. But the prices of asphalt that was $67 per cubic yard when I started working here, and we estimated this year it's going to be at about 150 a cubic yard, and that's general inflation, price of oil, that's just price of labor to put it down, that type of stuff. So inflation has gone up. I mean, inflation has caused prices to go up, and our revenue has not gone up, and that's the nature of what we live in. We understand our budget constraints, so I'm trying to work on ways that we can maybe try to do this a little more efficiently. So one of the changes I made immediately this year, and many should have noticed, is that I'm trying to kind of project out our paving over the next 3 years. So I gave everyone in their list a paving list for the next 3 years, and I color coded them per year. And I can't remember the colors, but we had this year's in yellow, and then we had the next 2 years in a different color, just to show that these are our goals, where we want to do in the next couple of years. And that kind of leads me, it's going to lead me into the next topic here, but it allows us to perform other infrastructure needs if they need to be done, so that we're not scrambling at the last minute. For instance, if we know that there's catch basins on a road that need to be repaired, we have time to go in and do those catch basins before we actually pave the road, so we're not kind of tearing the road up after we pave it. Another big reason is that we struggle sometimes with coordinating with utility companies on their capital projects, specifically Dominion. And we've ran into situations where we've had to scramble and push Dominion to get a project done before we paved it, because all of a sudden this road, and this really applies to the residential paving, because frankly, we don't put enough time in to plan those. I'm just, we meet with the council members, and, we try to start the process at the beginning of the year. We're scrambling at the last minute to try to select streets within a month. That's unheard of. We shouldn't be doing that. We should be setting our streets like a year before, so that we can get all this stuff done, so that we can do it smartly. As I say that, I've been in contact with a company called Pavement Management Group. They reached out to us, and I get approached by salesmen all the time, and honestly, it's
Chuck, before you go for Chuck, are you about to go on to the next item? Because we're not done with I have some questions about the road conditions themselves.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. Let's go back then.
Okay.
I'm done with what I had to say about that.
Okay. So for our public and for myself as well, how do you determine which roads to pave? Is there a rating system that's involved? And what is it?
There is. That's actually the topic for step 2 or item 2 on the agenda. But basically what no, we're not. I'm trying to go on, but you won't let me. No, I'm gonna.
Okay, go ahead.
We use the ODOT PCR, paving condition rating. We use kind of like we use it the best we can with the staff that we have. The actual process is pretty daunting to get through and actually analyze each one, but it's on a ranking of 1 to 100. When basically we compare them with other roads that we're looking at for you guys in each ward, and say, okay, this is we feel this is a 65. It has widespread cracking, but ODOT actually uses like some software to actually analyze that and say, okay, there's this much percentage of reflective cracks, or this much percentage of alligator cracking or raveling. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but yes, the ODOT PCR system is kind of what we use to rate the conditions of the street. At that point, we'll consider things like, are there a lot of residences on the street? Does it get a lot of traffic volume? That type of stuff. So it's a lot of streets that we have to pave, and it's not easy with the limited budget we have to look at those streets. So those are the two things. When you see the numbers next to it and say, this one's a 65 and this one's a 54, the 54, I would say, yes, definitely needs paved. Anything in the high 60s is something that probably could wait another couple of years.
So the higher the number, the better the street.
Yes, through the chair, a 100 is a freshly paved road and a 0 would be not even a road. It's, so
Okay.
yes, 100 would be the best, 0 would be the worst.
Any questions about our current paving system and rating system? Go ahead, Chuck.
I had my hand
Thank
up,
you.
Anita.
I'm sorry, Julius. I apologize. I'm not used to your little hand. Oh. Julius, go ahead.
Okay. Nita, I don't know if this is off subject or not, but I was going to ask Chuck if he had plans for using better pavement materials with our additional funds we have coming in moving forward. So can I ask that question now, or you want me to save it?
Good enough now. Is this I think it's under the current, let's see, database. Yeah, that's fine. It's under our current street paving.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Through the chair, Chuck. So I know you just talked about our budgetary restraints and everything, but with the assistance we have coming in from the federal government, it's always been due to our budget, we either only have to do this amount of streets or we can't use better material that other cities use to last far longer. So with our additional funds coming in, do you have a plan to be able to switch over to a longer lasting, better material to put down so we don't have to pave our streets so often?
Chuck?
Through the chair. Yes, Councilman. Well, first of all, let me start by saying I am still not aware of the actual details of what basically we're allowed to use this COVID money for. Like, it's my understanding from what I know right now that we are not able to use it just to pave streets. However, there are other ways we can get that accomplished. And, I think in the end, we're going to come up with a plan that is going to allow us to get some streets paved. How we get there is something that still remains to be seen. And that's going to depend upon when the actual details come out. But rest assured, we are already working on that. We are already working on different types of projects and methods and means to either replace money or come up with creative ways to do projects that's going to allow us to increase our pavement placement in the city. Now, that being said, I would respectfully disagree that the pavement material that we use is inferior. However, because I know that our paving material, I would put that up against and our methods of paving and our designs and so forth, that particularly when we do them in-house with Kadar and myself, they've lasted pretty long. One thing that we do, especially when we're getting outside grant money, is we will either incorporate fiber reinforcement in the asphalt, or we'll put down or both. We'll put down that top, they call it's a 424 polymer mix we put on the surface course that keeps water out. It's a better drivable surface. We have different mixes. Kadar comes up with really good mix designs when we do the projects in-house. I would put our mixes up against anyone. I don't think it's a matter of us using inferior products. We use all ODOT approved products, as does ODOT. The thicknesses we put down, that we spec out, and the materials that we add to it, I think give our pavement a long life. I think the most important thing is, more than that, is getting cracks sealed in the pavement when they do show up, so the water doesn't get under there and get inside the subbase and heave that pavement up. But yes, we do put fiber reinforcement. It's an ODOT approved material, and we do spec it out as much as we can. We tried our first one on Southern Boulevard in the 6th Ward about 5 years ago, I would say. It was pretty successful. We've been incorporating into all of our mixes on all of our major roads ever since.
Okay. Julius, did that answer your question?
No, but
okay.
It's cool.
Well, you want to repeat your question? Maybe another way of.
Nah, I just go in and talk to Chuck.
Okay, Chuck, how thick is it supposed to be, the road that's laid, the material?
through the chair, it depends upon the mix. Like when we do our local resurfacing, we take off 1.5 inches and we put 1.5 inches back. When we do our roads where we're getting grant money, we'll take out anywhere between 2 and 2.5 inches, and then we'll put that 2 or 2.5 inches back, and then usually we'll incorporate usually a 3/4 inch of the polymer on top, or we'll do it in two. Sometimes we'll do it in 2 lifts as well.
Okay, Jimmy, hold one quick minute. Follow. So, and when ODOT does the like Market Street and whatnot, are they putting down 2.25, 2.5, or is it thicker?
Through the chair, it depends upon their pavement design. Generally, I think ODOT will take out as much as 3 inches and put 2.5 inch lifts in. Is usually how it ends up doing. But a lot of times, unless we request fiber, they won't use it. And you know, we've just started requesting that they use fiber on some of these projects. We have to pay a little bit extra for that, but we still request it. The fiber is very successful in arresting the cracks that show up in the asphalt.
Okay, thank you, Jimmy.
Yes, through the chair. To the chairs. One quick, and you don't have to elaborate on it, Chuck, but potholes, what causes the potholes, Chuck? And what are we doing to prevent that and improve on no potholes?
Chuck.
Okay. Through the chair, potholes, technically we call them they're actually D-bonds. They're not, potholes are when you get a complete failure of the base. Like what happens is if water gets underneath the pavement, then it freezes, then it heaves up, and then the ground underneath it didn't fail. It just heaved up and picked up the pavement. And then when it thaws, it comes back down. Well, now you have an air void in there, like bubble wrap, if you think about it. And then when a truck goes over it, it breaks that up, and then you end up with a pothole or a D-bond or potholes, everybody calls them. But, so that's basically what causes them. Really, water freezing and thawing. The more it freezes, the more it thaws. Like if you get a winter with a lot of temperature fluctuations, then it freezes and thaws and freezes and thaws, and that it causes a lot of cyclical stresses on the asphalt itself, and that's how it crumbles.
Jimmy?
The preventing. So how do we stop that? And especially when we get so many.
Well, crack sealing. Through the chair, sorry, Anita.
No, go ahead.
Crack sealing is definitely one thing that we need to improve on. Also, I mean, proper roadway drainage. When we do a road rehab, like, you know, when we did Wick Avenue, when we did, we're doing 5th Avenue right now. We did Meridian Road a few years ago. When we do these larger projects where we're doing full curb replacement and everything, we definitely will put new under drains in, to along behind the curb. And what that does is, since the road's crowned, it directs all the water to the curb areas. It's picked up by those under drains and drained away. So adequate drainage on a road is really important. Unfortunately, obviously, we can't go in and do that on every residential street. We'd only be able to do like 1 street a year if we did that. So that's roadway drainage, and crack sealing is probably the most effective ways to try to help potholes. And really the fiber reinforcement, I think, helps too, if to some extent, unless the potholes get real bad.
Anyone else? Before I ask my next question of Chuck, before we go on. So Chuck, how would you rate, how long should our roads last? Well, like if they resurface the roads this year, what's your projection on how long it would last? If there's a formula.
I would, and we have useful life calculations we use for OPWC. They're a little extended. I would like to see, like, a residential road. I would say that it should last at least 10 to 12 years before it should need to be paved again. And we don't have the money to pave every road every 12 years anyways, but I think on a major street, I would say 7 to 10 years is probably a good indication. I think when you have a lot of traffic volumes and so forth on like a collector street or something like that, or a main route. Basically, ODOT figures about 10 years. I believe they try to schedule their urban paving in the city every 10 years. In fact, federal highway regulations won't even let them touch the road for 10 years. They won't even let them use federal money. And I didn't know if you guys, since we're on that subject, the federal money, ODOT, they use, when they pave our state routes in the city, they do those themselves. Like Anita just mentioned, or Councilwoman Davis just mentioned, Marcus Street and so forth. Those are roads that ODOT schedules themselves because it's a state route in the city. Now townships, they pave their state routes for nothing in the townships because they're required to by state law. By statute, we have to pay 80 or 20% of the actual pavement plus 100% of any other items. Handicap ramps that are required, we have to pay 100% for. Any pavement repair to the base, we have to pay for, stuff like that. But we pay 20% of the actual pavement. ODOT pays 80% of the actual pavement on state routes within the city, unless it's a highway. 422, Himrod Avenue, and so forth, 711. That's all 100% ODOT because it's a highway.
Okay. Anyone else have questions on this portion? Okay, going on, Chuck, about the technology in
Okay,
the
thank you
database.
through the chair. Yes, we were talking about payment conditions and how we select the streets. So I did, as I said, I got a call from a sales rep at a particular company called Payment Management Group. And we did a little set webinar on their system. And I liked it a lot. It was basically what they're proposing is they would come in and we want to see what else is out there, first of all, but it's a good concept. Basically, they want to come in and video document every street in the city and rate every street in the city. And then set it up in a database that would be available to the public to view, to basically help us plan our capital projects a little more efficiently out multiple years, which is why I started this 3-year concept of going out at least 3 years. I like to move that a little further. It could inventory and document all our infrastructure needs, from catch basins, stop signs, traffic lights, anything curb, anything you want, whatever they can catch on video, it could document that. And they have whole interactive databases that are very dynamic, and we can do whatever we want with. So it's something that I would love to move forward to. I think that using technology is something that we're all interested in helping us and do that and help us with our capital planning and so forth. So we're, a lot of municipalities are using this now. I mean, certainly the state is. Cost wise, I'm estimating that it could cost probably an initial setup to document everything could be about $100,000 to $120,000 with an annual maintenance fee of probably, they do them every 2 years. They update the ratings and the conditions. And with that, I think it would probably be about $50,000 a year to do that and maintain this database and these conditions, which is less than our bridge inspection program. So I think it's worth it. I know that we want to put every dime we can into physical pavement, but there's something to be said by doing it smarter as well.
So Chuck, the cost, you said is it $50,000 biannually or annually?
Through the chair, to actually go through and re-travel all the streets and video document them, it would be $50,000 annually, although they would do it every 2 years. But basically it would be a $50,000 payment every year instead of $100,000 every 2 years. So it's a little bit less of an impact on the budget annually. But if we decide, if council is amenable to this, it would have to come with council's approval first before it goes to the administration, obviously. But if the mayor's on board with it, I'm going to try to get it in front of you guys. And our first step would be to go out for RFPs to see what's comparable and what type of companies are out there that are doing this and anything else they can offer, or if it's to make sure we're getting an apples to apples comparison.
Samantha?
Thank
That's
you.
Samantha, and then Jimmy, I think I saw your hand next.
Thank you. So you got you saw the webinar, and they would do every street in the city, and then you would put that through the rating system that you have with ODOT. Like how does that work in relation to what you currently use and to what they're offering?
Through the chair, they would actually rate the streets with ODOT's formula.
Okay.
That's how they would, and they would do it. I'm not going to say we don't do it right, but we use kind of like a hybrid version based upon the resources that we have. But they would actually use the actual software that ODOT uses to rate them, the pavement condition rating.
Jimmy?
To the chair. I understand that President Biden was talking about some huge $1 trillion+ infrastructure money coming to the country. Do you have any are you following that for one? And would that be something we can take advantage of in this type of project?
Jeff?
Through the chair, yes. I would say that's exciting news. Obviously, I always want to see more infrastructure money. That money trickles down to the city through our MPO, through Eastgate. And honestly, I'm not saying it wouldn't be helpful because we've used a lot of federal money over the years, federal highway money, to do a lot of projects. Starting, the big thing, from the time that we reopened Federal Street, that was federal money. And a lot of these larger projects that you see coming through council are all federal money. We use a lot of federal money. There are some conditions with federal money. We cannot use them to pave residential streets. They have to be on the federal aid system. It's U.S. Title 23 that governs which streets are eligible for federal money. And Eastgate updates that list every once in a while, every 5 years, the state does. And so that would have to be Title 23 eligible streets. So an example of those streets would be Market Street, Mahoning Avenue, Belmont Avenue, Fifth Avenue, Logan Avenue, all the way down to streets possibly like Gibson Street on the south side or Hillman Street. Those would all be Title 23 eligible. Parkcliffe, I'm just naming streets off the top of my head. Parkcliffe, Chicago, Fairgreen, those are all little residential streets that would not be eligible for that type of money.
Jim?
No, that's it. I'm just trying to get an insight as to what hopefully we can get and use, but it doesn't seem like very much.
No, through the chair, I think that we, that process for doing that, they don't just, it's different than the federal money we're getting now. Well, first of all federal money comes with stipulations. It always does. But it's different because we don't get direct money from the federal government to pave streets. It comes through Eastgate, through our MPO, and we go through a process, and that's allotted through both counties, Mahoning and Trumbull County, and everybody gets pieces of that. And it's one of my jobs is to procure that money and fight for the money that we do get.
Okay. So, so Chuck, with this software, it would actually just rate the street, but not how we rate it in terms of not just a physical street, but we bring into factors like the number of residents that are on the street as well. The software system would not bring that into play.
Through the chair, the software, you're right. The software it only rates the physical condition of the roadway. But that's only one piece of the puzzle that we use to evaluate our paving program. So I would say that, there's other factors you could put in basically in the end result you get is a spreadsheet that's fully customizable. So you could, if you wanted to, you could put a category in there that says number of residents. If we had ability to do traffic data, you could put traffic data in there as far as like traffic counts. On the major streets, we would have that. But on the smaller streets, residential streets, we would have to get traffic data if we wanted to use that. But we feel that you could probably come up with an estimate of traffic volumes based upon numbers of residences. Generally, I mean, they all get garbage trucks, and garbage trucks are one of the heaviest vehicles on the road because they're always filled.
Okay, thank you. Samantha, you had another question?
I was just going to ask about the cost involved with this software and the program. Is it a one-time cost to have them develop it and we maintenance and maintain it? Or do we pay over time per street or how's that set up?
So there, through the chair, there would be about 100 to 120,000 initial setup fee where they would go out and physically in person rate all the streets. And then after annually, as I said, they would rate the streets again and video document them every 2 years, and it would work out to be about 50,000 per year after.
Samantha?
You said it would be 50 per year after the initial setup?
Through the chair, yes.
Okay.
So Samantha, I'm sorry, did that answer it? Okay,
Through the chair, let me
Right.
reiterate that I'm estimating because we haven't actually gone out for any RFPs yet or got any official quotes. This is some approximate numbers that we got from the person who was giving us the webinar based upon the amount of streets we have.
okay. Chuck, what are they doing? How are they doing this mapping thing? Are they using a drone?
Through the chair, they're doing it just like we do it, but they're doing all the streets. And they're adding on, basically, for the lack of a better word, I guess, they're using a GoPro. And they're going to video the street. So that you could actually bring up the video of any street and view it to see although it's not live, not real time, but it's within, a year of being able to see any conditions or any issues on the street.
But are they driving the streets or are they doing aerially?
Through the chair, they're driving the streets.
Okay. So we would have to, if we were to go with a company like this, we would have to maintain this thing every year, and we couldn't just go like every other year, having them map it. I mean, why
Through
every
the chair,
year?
through the chair, I mean, maybe I didn't explain it correctly. They rate the streets and drive the streets every other year at a cost of about 100,000. So instead of paying $100,000 every other year, basically it would be like a multi-year contract at 50,000 a year. I don't know if that made it clear or not.
It makes it clear, but just my thought is, I'm just not understanding if we use this thing for like 4 or 5 years, I'm not quite sure if I could understand why we would use it every year, because the roads aren't changing that much. Every year, every other year, that we would pay 100 literally every 2 years, dropping 100 grand. I mean, we can afford it right now, but we may not be in that position down the road. I'm just looking at the down the road portion of it, where we may not be quite as I don't want to say flush, but and quite as positive a position. Samantha, your hand is up.
Thank you, through the chair. So Chuck, is your proposal or idea you're placing in front of us for us to further explore this program that would cost, or software that would cost us 50,000 a year or 100,000 every 2 years, for our streets for all of the streets across the city to be evaluated? And you're saying that this would help if we made this investment on a biannual basis. This would help you to be able to build out a street resurfacing program.
Through the chair, yes, Councilwoman Turner, that is correct. And to go back and address Councilwoman Davis's question or comment, the 2 years is something that the reason that came up is because that's what ODOT uses when they do their PCRs. They do them every 2 years on their state routes. So that's the number that I came up with. I mean, I'm sure we can put out an RFP for whatever we're asking for. If we want to do the streets every 4 years, we could tell them we want to do them every 4 years. So 2 years is just industry standard that ODOT uses.
Okay, thank you.
Chair.
Samantha?
So after 2 years, or say we come to 4 years, do you think that the Public Works Department would then have a blueprint of the streets that need to be paved on a cycle, would then have a cycle of all the streets in the city, and we're not pulling them? And maybe we don't have to go back to this because we already have it. We paved this street this year, we'll pave it again in this year. Or do you think this was something we would continuously need to use beyond the first initial contract period?
Chuck?
Thank you, Councilwoman. That's a great question. Now, the way ODOT does it, I mean, ODOT does this part of how they plan their capital projects. So they've been doing it forever, and that's how they're going to always continue to do it. I would say that if we decided that we're only going to do this for a short period of time, then it's probably not something that would be very useful because the data would get outdated at some point. I mean, I guess you can go back and try to restart it again. The whole point of this is to get everything into a GIS database so that we can keep a good current inventory of all of our infrastructure needs. I'm not talking about just streets. I'm talking about street signs, traffic signs, stop signs, that type of stuff, so that we're kind of, as you know, having less people, it's difficult to maintain this infrastructure. And we used to have 6 or 8 people just in engineers in the city, and I know that's not going to happen again, but we're still trying to maintain 600 miles of roadway with 3 of us.
Chuck, looking at this here, what is CB?
Catch basins?
Thank you. Okay. So I'm slow, just forgive me. Okay.
I wasn't sure if you meant.
So.
You're looking at the agenda, sorry.
Yeah, so they would be looking at the roads, they would do a good look at the catch basin, our signage and everything, not just the road where we're driving on.
Through the chair, they're looking at the roads. Our staff would have to do like our wastewater staff would have to do the catch basins. Like they're not going to get out of the car and look at each catch basin, but we still have to do that. But this allows us to bring it into the inventory and central database is what we're looking at.
Okay, so they could input that information about the catch basin signage and things like that all into the same database.
Yes. Now the database, through the chair, my goal is to have the databases to be maintained by the city. We're going to need a GIS person to do that, but we have all the tools for GIS, but we don't really have any employee to do it with either the know-how or the time to do it. So that's definitely something I want to look at. We basically have a Ferrari in the driveway and we don't have the keys.
Hot wired.
Okay. Okay. All right, thank you. Are there any questions about the technology that Chuck was talking about? You're gonna be looking at several besides just this one, correct, Chuck?
Through the chair, yeah. If we want to go out for requests for qualifications to see who's out there that provides this type of service. We've only heard from one person.
Okay.
But the concept is something I'm trying to discuss with you guys today.
Now, with this will all help us to, like I say, to build our planning out so that something that's going on, like right now on my street, where the street just got paved, all 3 blocks have been paved now, and now we have Dominion tearing up the road. So we'll be able to avoid some of these situations. Chuck?
Through the chair, yes, because although like Dominion has a capital program, we don't. I mean, our capital program is the long-term funding needs on major streets, so that works. But our like I said, our residential streets, we just decided on them, I don't know, 2 weeks ago. So, and we're already bidding them, so that's not the right way to do it. It's not. We've been doing it for years, and we've dodged a lot of bullets, and some we haven't dodged, and we've torn up streets that we just paved before, and you know, we've paved over streets where there's issues that we'll get it next time. I mean, it's just the way how we've been operating, just because that's how, you know, like I said, it's just have Kadar and Jordan, and we just got Jordan a couple years ago, and myself, as you can imagine, I have other things to do, and I try to devote as much as I can to it, but there's lots of other things that my day consists of.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on this topic before we move on to the next item on the agenda?
I just have a request.
Samantha?
Thank you. Chuck, could you provide us with exactly what you are looking to accomplish with this? If you just, send us an email saying, this is the approximate cost, this is what I'm looking to accomplish with it, and this is how I plan to manage it. I would greatly appreciate just something like that to kind of make sure I can get my head wrapped around it and able to support you moving this forward.
Through the chair, okay, I will do that. I will get something to you, Councilwoman, because we're not really, honestly, I mean, this is just a concept right now. I mean, it's certainly something I want to institute this year, but I think what we're going to do is go out for RFQs just to see what's out there, not necessarily even RFPs yet. And then at that point, I think we'll have an idea of what's out there other than this one company, and be able to, give you a better idea of what we're going to accomplish with it. But the goal of it is, I can tell you right now, is like I've already said it a couple times, is that we want to make this an intelligent database that we can use as a tool to better plan our paving and better plan all of our capital projects, not just paving, to incorporate water and wastewater and traffic needs and everything into one central database and one central process to plan our capital projects.
Through the chair,
Cal.
I have to leave to go to a meeting that is your next topic that Chuck is going to be joining me, but they've texted me, so I'm going to say goodbye and go to another Zoom meeting.
Okay,
So I just
all
wanted
right.
to make
Thank
you
you,
aware.
Cal.
Thank
We'll
you.
be in touch.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Chuck, I do have a question. How would you rate our city streets using a letter grade, A, B, C, D, and F? What percent do you think is an A, a B, a C, a D, and a failure?
Through the chair, I would say overall, like if you look at every street in the city, I would say probably a D plus.
D plus, okay. What percentage of our streets do you think can still are our residential, our side streets? What percentage do you think have been paved in the past, say 8-10 years, decade? What percentage of our roads have been taken care of?
Through the chair, we have a lot of roads, a lot of side streets. And when I say this, I don't mean to, we have the resources that we have. I'm not griping. I'm not, saying that we're not prioritizing. We're not, and we have a lot of needs in the city, and we have half the number of residents to provide those needs, to provide revenue to do those needs. So I would say that we probably have addressed, I would say honestly, we probably have addressed about 12 lane miles. I would say we do about 12 to 15 lane miles per year. So out of 600 miles of road, which is different than a lane mile, but I would say that we probably have addressed 20% of our residential streets over the last 10 years. We have a lot of streets. That I'm guessing, but it's an educated guess.
I appreciate that. I think everybody a lot of people ask that kind of question, like, how much have we accomplished? Jimmy, you had your hand up.
I'm just trying to make a little bit of a statement, and Chuck, you don't really have to. Maybe part of it is a question. The reason why we're a D plus, and I don't know where you found the plus, but the reason why we have a D, that we have I believe to be a D plus going on with the street, wouldn't that be revenue. The reason why our streets are in the condition they are, because we wasn't timely enough to do whatever is necessary to keep them up to a B+ or something. And that, like, I mean, the only obstacle here is finance, I think, for our streets being in better shape. So to me, knowing that they're in bad shapes, and you can just call me any day of the week and I can tell you what streets in my ward are bad, so you have that and you can just back them in a database that we can create. But to create more, to pay more money, I can just looking at it, it sounds like every 8 years or every 4 years is $500,000 that we're going to be investing in just a database to tell us that the streets are in bad shape, need to be done. So 8 years is $1 million, and it goes on. And that's just a guess because nothing comes out the way we think and the figures that we were given. When the companies come and they get a hold of us, those things go up. So I don't see where, if it's money that got us here and you're going to spend more money to tell us that the streets are bad, that's a solution to the problem. I really don't. And yes, it may not be the big number, $50,000 a year, but I get what I get to do the streets on the east side. And really, I think if there's more money, put more money on the east side, and to have a database to tell us what streets are bad, that's not our problem. The problem is doing the streets. That was it for me.
Thank you, Jimmy, for that insight, because it's kind of like my direction too. Chuck, I do have you're saying over the past 10 years, you think maybe 20% of the roads have been repaved. How long have you been here? And this is not an attack on you, but I just want to get your background, how far your knowledge goes back.
Through the chair, this will be my 21st year at the city.
And we've come down, am I correct in saying that every year we've given less and less to our residential street paving?
Through the chair, no, that's not what I said. I said the amount of funding we dedicate to resurfacing every year has not kept pace with inflation.
It's not kept pace with inflation. So we haven't put more money, the cost has gone up and we haven't put more money towards it. So we're getting less.
Through the chair, our paving programs have routinely, I'm talking about our local resurfacing program.
Right, correct.
The one that we know of every year. That project has gone from about $900,000 when I first started here, and now we'll probably be at we just dedicated 1.1 this year. I may have to come back to you guys and bring it up to 1.2, depending on how the bids come in. Because our estimate right now is 1.3. So we're talking about a $400,000 increase in how much we're spending, but asphalt has more than doubled.
Gotcha.
Now I've tried to offset that with creative, through the chair, sorry. I've tried to offset that with with creative ways of getting projects done to try to not focus and use that little amount of money we have on major roads. And we've aggressively, and I can't use that word strong enough, pursued federal funding for all these major roads, state funding, mixing and matching them. So those roads that we don't even pay anything for, where we're getting free paving on, I can name probably 6 or 7, Fifth Avenue, Belmont Avenue, South Avenue. At some point, Mahoning Avenue was done. It's getting done again. East Federal Street. There's a lot of Himrod Avenue. Those types of roads. Those are all examples of roads that we applied for state funding, federal funding for, then applied for state funding for the local match. So we didn't pay anything for those roads. So if we wouldn't have done that, I don't know when or if those roads would have gotten paved. I don't know what would have happened. We would have had to have used our local money if we didn't have that federal money. So that's, you know, it's a lot of work to get through that, but we've gotten very good at it. And I'm very thankful that we have the staff that we have that is very knowledgeable.
Okay, thank you. Before we go on, I have just two more questions, and this is about the dollar amounts. Out of curiosity, what is the cost to put down a sidewalk? A block, like a square or whatever, or give me some dollar amounts.
Through the chair, I would say in and out, that means removing the old sidewalk, prepping it, and putting new sidewalk in. I would say that you're probably in the neighborhood of about $9 a square foot. So if you figure a slab of sidewalks 5 by 5, you're looking at about $2.25 per slab if you're doing a lot of sidewalk. Like if you can't just say that's for one slab, but if you're doing a lot of sidewalk on a large project, I think I would use an estimate of $8 or $9 a square foot.
And so, I'm sorry, you said something about 225, 225?
That's through the chair. If you look at like how big a slab is, it's about 5 foot by 5 foot. So about 200 to 225 per slab of sidewalk.
Okay.
It's just that it's not always in nice square slabs. So.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have questions before we move on to the last item and let Chuck get to our meeting probably with the state? Moving on to the last item then, Chuck?
Through the chair, yes, I have Gene Leeson's here with me, and I just wanted to just update you on where we're at with our long-term control plan. Also, just generally with wastewater and some major issues that we're having at wastewater and that we need to address. First of all, long-term control plan, phase 1 is, for all intents and purposes, is complete. We have some minor punch list items, and the contracts physically or administratively have not been closed out yet, but construction is complete, and the process, all the new processes are in place. And so from a EPA standpoint, we are complete with it on phase 1. Phase 2, we have begun preliminary design on our wet weather facility. Just to refresh everybody's memory, we have 3 phases to our long-term control plan. We have improvements at the wastewater treatment plant, which is phase 1. Phase 2 is what we're calling a wet weather facility or a high rate treatment facility. And then phase 3 is elimination of the overflows at Mill Creek Park. So in phase 2, we started preliminary design. We went through a rate study. As you all remember, about 4 years ago, we did the rate study. Then we kind of went back. We revisited it, and we did a rate adjustment to pay for construction that was currently happening at the wastewater treatment plant. Contracts were already committed. We had to raise the rates to pay for remember, if you guys recall, they wouldn't lend us any more money with WDA until we raised the rates. Everybody remember that? So we did not put in that rate increase any further design for phase 2. So basically, we have kind of been stuck at phase 2 with preliminary design. It is going to be time to make a decision on how we're going to move on. And I think that this COVID money that's coming in is going to play a part in that. And that's some discussions we're going to have with the administration when we get together as we start discussing how we're going to spend that money. And that's just something that everybody needs to be aware that we have committed to spend $160 million on this long-term control plan. And we need to take some action to see, first of all, to see how much, where these rates have to be to fund that, but also what we can do to kind of try to mitigate those rate increases through outside funding, such as the massive amount of money we're getting. I have one more thing to bring up also is our incinerator. We had some legislation to do some preliminary work on our incinerator. You guys approved it. We went forward. We know that our incinerators and scrubbers need to be completely rehabbed and replaced. The air scrubbers need to be replaced. Right now, we are landfilling all of our sludge. and it's costing us about $800,000 a year just to landfill our sludge. I just had a meeting with the contractor that is taking our sludge, and they are under environmental regulations and restrictions that they are unsure. I shouldn't say they're unsure. They basically have stated that they can do this probably for another 2 years, and then then they're not going to be able to provide the service to landfill or sludge anymore. We have to get back into burning sooner than later. So we have right now, we've been going through our design iterations with a consultant on this incinerator rehab. I'm going to tell you now that right now we're looking at a approximate estimates, just approximate, of about $18 million to rehab our incinerators. That's going to translate into a design contract of about probably $2 million to get this final design work done for our incinerators. Our goal was to have these incinerators up and running within 2 years, and I got at least probably a year of construction time. So I need to get this final design moving by the end of summer. So I'm going to be coming to council to authorize the next phase in this design so that we can get moving. And then at that time, we will have a better idea of what the actual cost is going to be. But that's a situation where, if we can not finance this and use COVID money, we're probably going to be very far ahead on that. So as we discuss this with the administration, when we all get together, that's one of the things I'm going to bring up. And that's the situation we're in. If we do nothing on this incinerator, I'm not going to lie, I don't know what we're going to do with our sludge in 2 years.
Okay, thank you, Chuck. Our sludge.
Before anyone asks, there's.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Chuck.
Sorry, Council, I interrupted you. No, I mean, we generate a significant amount of sludge, and we don't have options that other companies try to take advantage of, such as agricultural use, that type of stuff. I mean, some areas do try that, but really incinerating, I don't know that we have any other option at this point.
Okay. Chuck, our sludge is the stuff that we generate here in the city, correct? It's not from outside.
Through the chair, yes.
Okay.
Well, it's whatever comes into our plant through the chair. We do have some areas that contribute outside the city to our plant.
What do you, yes, I am curious. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. Oh yeah, through the collection system, through the chair, through the collection system, we take sewage from certain areas of Mahoning County and Trumbull County. We have agreements to do that in place.
And if we were to do this burning, we would be charging them, or is this a part of our agreement with them?
Through the chair, right now we have an agreement that's in place to accept their sewage and treat it. So that's part of the treatment process. So there would be that's part of the wastewater process, is disposing of the sludge in one way or another.
Okay. Thank you. I have a question though. So with this, with the EPA thing, if we didn't have this COVID money, and you're suggesting that we use this, how would we be paying for it?
Through the chair, we would normally, how we would do this is we would use cash for the design. Mm-hmm. And we would have to finance the rest. And in order for us to get the financing, I mean, the EPA is going to want another rate study, because they require them every 4 years. But we would have, I'm guessing we would have to, we would have to adjust the rates in order to finance any more. I mean, we've had to adjust the rates on financing of construction we've already done. I mean, our ability to take on any more debt with the current rate structure is not feasible. I'm aware of.
Okay. Right. Well, so are we going to, if we were to use our COVID money, would we be also seeking assistance from the county, because this benefits not just Youngstown residents, but people outside of Youngstown? Are we looking at them to also assist us with their COVID money?
Through the chair, you're correct. We do have, our existing agreement covers capital costs. That it's a separate payment that the county makes to us for that. So yes, we would. And just so to be clear, if we're able to use, and one of the things that the COVID money is able to be used for is sewer and water projects. So I don't want to mislead anyone and tell you that if we use the COVID money, we won't have to raise rates. I can't tell you that. I can't say that's going to be the case, but it's certainly going to mitigate those rate increases, as you can imagine. I mean, to say that for an incinerator, for example, if we could pay for the incinerator project with this 88 million and not have to finance it, I think everybody understands that's a good thing, that we wouldn't have to raise rates to finance that, because we won't even be able to get the loan on 18 million that I'm aware of without raising the rates, because
Right.
we're on a thin ice right now at the EPA as OWDA as it relates to our rates and our ability to borrow any more money.
So I'm still curious though about, you said we have an agreement with the county to do some assisting. What exactly is that? This, give me a little bit more information, because I could see us using, possibly utilizing some of our COVID funding and stuff like that, but I would, because Youngstown does have COVID money, but the county in general also has its COVID money. And I would like to see us, if we have to do something like this here, to have this thing spread about through the whole county and not just on the backs of Youngstown's, the city of Youngstown. So if you could tell me what the county's participation would be with their COVID funds.
Through the chair, I'm just talking to Gene off mic for a second. I think we get about $5 million a year from the county
Okay.
to treat their sewage and to participate in any capital projects that we're doing in general. But I don't know that there's nothing in the agreement that has anything to do with where they get that money, whether it's from the users or COVID or, I can't answer for the county on that and how they're planning on using their COVID money. I would say that it depends. The actual amount of capital costs that the county incurs and contributes to the city is based upon what's happening. So it depends on what projects we're doing. So if we're not doing any capital projects, obviously they don't pay very much. But if we're doing a lot of projects, they pay more. So I would have to get that data to see. I didn't realize that was one of the topics we were going to discuss. But I could certainly get that information on how we're structuring that. But I guess the short answer is, they are by contract responsible for some capital costs on the conveyance and treatment of the sewage that we take from them.
Questions before Chuck goes? If there are no questions, then I want to thank you, Chuck, and Jean as well, and everyone else for the information that you gave us today. And we'll set up a date in the future for another infrastructure meeting. And when you have some more information for us, I would really like to see a true report card. Oh, I do have a question. It is about our bridges, by the way. But the bridges, how are the bridges that we have in our city? That's our responsibility, and as well as the bridges that the county has. How are they in terms of your rating system or grading system?
Through the chair, the bridges in our city are we have a lot of minor issues with the bridges, like when I say like guardrail that are misplaced and so forth. But like structurally, we have a couple that are fracture critical. One is actually being demolished. That's the Crescent Street Bridge. And I would say if I had to put a grade on our bridges, I'd say they're probably a good, I would say a C. We do go after a lot of federal funding to maintain our bridges here and there. I mean, I didn't use a plus or a minus, Councilman Hughes. I just use a C. We go after municipal bridge funding a lot to help rehab our bridges. So we're going to be doing one for the South Avenue Bridge over the railroad. So that's an application we're going to be putting in within the next month or so, and then that project will probably start. It takes a good 2-3 years to get through this federal process.
Chuck, if no one else has any other questions, I have a couple more. Chuck, when I think of infrastructure, I think about our streets and our sidewalks, our bridges, and as well, I think about our buildings and things like that. And the reason I keep talking about a report card is like, how do we know? How do we plan things out if we don't do an assessment? Instead of, like you said, responding because it happens today, we respond today. We don't look at our things and see that it's going to last another year, another 2 years, another 5 years. We do need to. I know you might be short on people, but we need to have some sort of grading system, so that we know where we stand, and that we're not just going by the, I don't want to say just responding. We're responsive, and we're not doing proactive. We need something from your office, Samantha. I see your hand going up. Am I saying the right thing, Samantha? Okay.
I'm just here. I'm just listening. Yes.
But I just think that we need to have some kind of reports that gives us some things in writing, so we know exactly where we stand. We can do some real planning, not by the seat of the pants so much. Thank you. Anybody have questions?
I'm glad to hear you say that.
Okay. Questions for Chuck and Jean before they go? Okay, Jimmy, your hand is creeping up, Jimmy. You're muted.
I hear whispering. Cut it out, Chuck. But I thought we was going to discuss something about sidewalks, but I'm okay with that, not to back and forth with it though. But maybe the next time we can have a discussion about sidewalks and replacement and what's the deal is with the handicap accessible things and why we don't have sidewalks in certain places, and how can we get them, when we build structures and there's people's walking. I have a library in my ward, and there's no sidewalks, and there's my constituents is concerned about that, and they're making comments. But I, for another time, I'm thinking, Chuck.
Chuck, can you address that now? Do you want to have another meeting about sidewalks by themselves?
Through the chair, it depends on how much detail you want to get into. I can tell you that we've done a lot of sidewalk work in some areas, mainly around schools, and that's because there's a funding source for it. Safe Routes to School. We did the Safe Travel Plan in conjunction with YNDC a few years ago. We've been implementing it. You've seen the legislation pieces that come through on the Safe Routes to School programs. But I would agree with you, Councilman Hughes, that the library is something that I did hear about the library on the east side on Early Road, and it probably could use some sidewalks. I guess it depends upon how much people are walking to the library. So that's kind of what the travel plan for the schools was set up that way, and is trying to determine how many kids are walking to each school. In certain schools, there was more walkability, and those are the schools that you're seeing ODOT favorably funding, because we had a plan in place to do that. So it's a competitive funding source. Lots of communities applied for that Safe Routes to School. We did a good job coming up with that safe travel plan that puts us up on gives us a little bit of an advantage on when we get the funding, because we have the plan. So that's what it basically depends upon, is how many people are actually walking there. How many people do we anticipate walking to the library, for example? But that's, putting sidewalk in is something that, our city ordinances state that the homeowner has to, or the property owner in front of that has to maintain the sidewalk. So, some people may not want sidewalks in front of their property. When these roads were built, there were certain goals in mind on why they should have sidewalks and why they shouldn't. Frankly, out in the suburbs, you rarely see sidewalks. Developers just didn't want to put them in when they built the roads. In Youngstown, there's usually sidewalks in every residential area. The only times you don't really see them is out in the rural areas or on the major roads where, when they built them originally, pedestrian traffic wasn't something they really considered. Thoughts are changing now.
Through the chair.
Jimmy again, and then Samantha. You had.
This is just, I mean, again, I wasn't trying to get into it at this discussion. I get that, but we get these vacant houses, homes that we tear down in between. So we have like gaps, the sidewalks are not being maintained in the gap part of the area where the houses is gone already. And then the next group of people, that does have houses, some of them taking care of them, there's overgrowth going into them and whatnot there. And I'm concerned, and I get it from my constituents because I've walked a lot of streets and I get gaps with sidewalks and I don't know what to do. I don't know what to tell them. And I've actually landscaped some of them myself, but the point still being is that they're there and they're horrible, in the residential area on a couple of the streets that you say that are what they are. I'm not really expecting a response to this unless you got one, of course. But,
through the chair, I will say, if it's okay, Councilman, I will say that what you're talking about, Councilman Hughes, when we have vacant houses and there's gaps in sidewalks all in front of the house, I wish that we could just put in our contract when we do demolition, just tell the contractor, if we're doing it by contract, to just replace the sidewalk. But our demolition money is thinner than it's been in a while. We were pretty flush with our environmental sanitation fund for a while, but now not so much. I mean, we adjusted those rates back to the water department, and we don't have the money in our demolition budget anymore to do that. But I would say, theoretically, and from a planning standpoint, when we look about changing sidewalks, replacing sidewalks in the neighborhood, there's been a mindset in the past that said, well, that's a vacant house, we don't need sidewalk in front of there. Well, that's somewhere where we need it because no one's going to put it in. The homeowner isn't going to put it in. So obviously they didn't take care of the house. They're not going to put sidewalk in. So I would say yes, in front of those vacant houses or in front of those demolished houses is an area because you're going to consider the walkability of the neighborhood as a whole. And if the sidewalk is gone, eventually all the sidewalk will be gone if we tear every house down. So we're either going to maintain the sidewalks or we're not. So if we're going to demolish the house, the sidewalk should be replaced with it because no one else is going to do it.
sounds like a
Samantha?
winner.
I'm sorry, Jimmy, you had a
No, I'm
follow-up?
done. No, I do not. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Samantha.
I just think that as a body, we should look at that legislation and really begin to address this issue with sidewalks, because it's not just about the safe routes to schools for the kids. It's also about the seniors in our communities, because they are the people who have their homes and have had their homes and have lived in this city and kept us sustainable. And in front of their house, their sidewalk is impassable. They can't get from one corner to the next, and they can't walk around the block. So I think there's a large issue here that we need to address across the city. And thank you, Jimmy, for bringing it up and the issues that you're facing. And thank you for landscaping around your residents' sidewalks to make them passable. But we also, when we cut our grass in our vacant lots, we just ride right over them, and there's grass on the sidewalk as well. So I think it's a larger issue that we need to, as a body, come together to make some real change and some swift change too, because again, our seniors are just as affected as our kids are when they're going to schools. That's all.
Thank you. And Samantha, I think it was yesterday or the day before that I spoke to either Mike or Kevin about the grass on the sidewalk, about getting a goat to a ride on you know what a goat is? Okay, to do just that, to clean up the sidewalks after they, after we cut the lots, the mowers are not gonna go up there and run that, get up there and rake it, they just mow. But a goat would help our street department to complete the job, spruce it up a little bit. Thank you. Any other questions for Chuck and Jean from the committee or other members of council? If there are not, we will announce a date for the next meeting at another time. We'll get a date selected for a follow-up with more information that we'll be looking for from that Jimmy's going to want on sidewalks, I think. Okay. But from our committee, if there's nothing else, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Thank you very much. And we are adjourned. The time is